Thanks so much, everyone. I'm going to start off by saying that I've been looking forward to this for months. And yesterday morning, I woke up with absolutely no voice. So this morning, I woke up sounding like I'm channeling some kind of cartoon character. So those of you out there who know me know that this is not how I really sound, but it's the best we've got for today. So what I'm going to talk about is something I've invented. It's called holistic digital literacy. But I want to start off by thinking back 30 years. George Orwell wrote a book in 1949 that projected that we would have political chaos by the time we got to the year 1984. Luckily, he was wrong about almost everything. But one thing he was right about was that a revolution did take place in 1984. And this was it. For those of you who don't recognize this instantaneously, this is the 128K, yes, K, not gigabyte, Macintosh that was introduced in January of 1984. I never actually owned this one. I couldn't get together the money, so I saved my money and eventually I bought a 512E. Yeah, 512K. At the time, that was an amazing invention. And what it was the beginning of a revolution that we now call sometimes the information age. It's been a wonderful 30 years. We've learned a lot. But there has been one cost associated with the information revolution and with the fact that we have such amazing machines at our disposal. And that fact is that we no longer can predict what our future is going to look like. The job you may really want and need 10 years from now may not even exist at this point in time. And that makes the task for students particularly difficult. What kind of major do I have? What's the value of my college education? We've heard how much it costs. What am I going to do with my life that's going to make it worthwhile? It's been my privilege over the last 5 years to work with several hundred students each year who are applying for national scholarships. And over that time, it's become really clear to me that those students do some things that I didn't do when I was a student, but which allow them to be far more prepared for the world that doesn't yet quite exist. And this is what I call holistic digital literacy. It's a combination of a set of very old skills, a set of new skills, and some kinds of experience which taken together can make it possible for you to do well in whatever world it is we will have ahead of us. Number one, this is a very old skill. It's the capacity to read difficult texts. And I'm using the word text deliberately because I'm not talking about the format. It can be an 800-page Russian novel. It can be a white paper from the Department of State. It can be any kind of scientific journal article filled with charts and graphs, or it can be just a really badly designed website that's uploaded a PDF and the most important piece of information is on page 15. We all encounter these texts and we need to push ourselves to understand not only what these texts are saying, but how to access the information from it. And I will tell you that it takes not just the ability to learn these things, but also to practice them, because they're skills you can lose. Number two, the ability to write for diverse audiences. And I can give an example from my own work with scholarship students. There's a scholarship called the Goldwater. It's for STEM students, and the people who review those are all STEM professors. There's another scholarship called the Fulbright. Students can apply for that some years later. But that audience is made up of people from all possible disciplines. The same student writing for the Goldwater will have to write in a very different way when that student is writing for the Fulbright. Scientists, natural scientists, live in what I call the quantified world, and the rest of us live in something else that doesn't have quite such a good name. In any case, our lives will be filled with writing, and we have to know for whom we're writing and why, and what those people need to know and what they don't need to know. Self-knowledge. This sounds really easy, but basically what I'm talking about is a process of self-reflection. There are many, many things to be done out there in the world. There are lots of big problems. to be solved. It's very exciting. But we do have to have some sense into what are not just my talents, but what are my desires? How much money do I really need? How much time do I need? What kinds of trade-offs will there be? And it takes self-knowledge at every stage to figure that out. Here are the new skills, online versus residential. The online revolution has given us a tremendous amount of flexibility. But here's something that I've learned in my own life. When you want to learn something that's really difficult and new, you probably need to think about a residential opportunity. So I wanted to learn Korean because I was going to be going to Korea for 2 weeks. And I tried using online resources because I speak a European language fluently. I figured, hey, it can't be that hard, right? Well, it turns out it is that hard. Within a week, I needed to get myself a tutor, which I did, and it made Korea a wonderful experience. On the other hand, when I am practicing my German, I use Duolingo, which is this great online app you can use for 10 or 15 minutes. And it works really well for doing things and reviewing things that you already know. So if you have something that's challenging to learn, do it residentially. And do it, if possible, in the summer. Use peer tutoring. Use all the people power you can get. On the other hand, if you've got something that you want to add some additional knowledge, that's a place where online learning can really be helpful and maybe give you the opportunity to do when you wouldn't have otherwise. Digital literacy, thinking and writing with technology tools. I wish I was better at this one. But I will say that the one thing I have done is started to use bibliographic software. If you are typing footnotes, you shouldn't be. Bibliographic software allows you to store all the citations from everything you might possibly be reading and keep that available so that if you revisit a topic, let's say your junior year that you wrote about in your freshman seminar, you'll still have access, accurate access, to all the things you've already read and done. Let me also put a plug in for financial management software. Managing your money is really important when college costs so much, and there are tools to help you do that better. Decision-making skills. Here's where we pity the State Department. You've got to make a decision about Ukraine. You've got all this information pouring in, but you have to make that decision on some kind of reasonable time frame. You can't just wait until you've got all the information, because the reality is we're never going to have all the information. So one of the things that high-performing students do is they know when they've got enough information and they can make a decision and feel comfortable with those decisions. Okay. How do you go about getting these things? Number one, undergraduate research. That is, you work as an undergraduate with a professor. This is incredibly important. It's a model that's been used in the natural sciences for a long time, but it can be used in the social sciences and pre-professional, and certainly in the liberal arts. The important thing is, in you working with someone who is creating new knowledge, you begin to understand the difference between learning what we already know and creating new knowledge in any given field. Study abroad, all I can say is go overseas as much and as often as possible. Learn another language if you can. Networking. One of the real benefits of going to Penn State is that not only do we have an enormous alumni base, but we have students from all over the world. I often say to students, you can start your study abroad simply by going and connecting up with your fellow students. They'll give you the inside scoop in a way that other people and websites never can. Engaged scholarship. Alex just talked about that. Project-based, community-generated opportunities. Sometimes they're attached to courses, sometimes they're attached to student groups. In any case, it's all important. Big C versus little c. I'm not going to get into the controversy about that, but you need to know both symphonies and rap music and everything in between. This gives you an opportunity to connect up with other people that you may never have met before. Showcase your talents. Come see me at the Fellowships Office. Shameless plug there. And here's the final point. Penn State is an elite university without an elitist attitude, and sometimes those two things get confused. Elitism is thinking that you're wonderful just because you're you. Being an elite institution is that we're wonderful because of the things that we can accomplish. Thank you, and best of luck with your education.